Alright, so welcome back to this video. We're going to continue on, and this time I think I'm going to try to be faster instead of I'm just going to touch on the stuff that needs more explaining. It's a little more confusing, and I say that, so we'll see how it goes. But okay, this section, the sun, the moon, the dragon, and the false prophet. I probably will just try to go through all of it, but let's try to be faster than today. But anyway, so across spiritual traditions, symbols often point to the same inner truths, and one of these is the sun and the moon, the polarity of them. You can look at the sun and the moon as the sun is heart and the moon is mind. And in this model or vision, the heart is the sun, the seat of pure awareness, or Shiva in Hinduism. The sun shines by its own light, just as awareness does not depend on anything outside it to exist. The mind is the moon. It's reflective, changeable, and dependent on the sun's light. Just as the moon appears bright only because it reflects the sun, the mind only appears conscious because it reflects the light of awareness. This symbolism is echoed in Tantra and Christianity. In Tantra, Shaivism, the Ida and Pingala channels, which are, you see in Hinduism, they have the Kundalini, the two serpents, and, one is masculine and one's feminine, Ida and Pingala. Pingala, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they're associated with lunar and solar currents sometimes, and they spiral up the spine, converging with the central channel or the Sushumna, where the Kundalini rises. Now, you can look at Shiva and Shakti symbolically as sun and moon, and the balancing of these two energies is, balancing the moon, mind, sun, and heart. And I kind of like to look personally at the full moon is kind of like the mind that is embodying the light of spirit, shining the light of spirit or God's will in alignment with God's will, etc. That's what the full moon kind of represents to me, is like a moon that's fully embodying the light of God and reflecting, God's will out into the world, being a light in the night sky type thing. So there you go. That's just one way to look at it. Christianity too carries symbolism in many ways. The Gospels describe a darkening of the sky, an eclipse at the crucifixion of Jesus. An eclipse is where the moon and sun line up. Mystically interpreted, this can be seen as the sun, or the spirit, the heart, which is Christ consciousness association, merging with the moon, the mind, the earthly nature, and the ego. This is when the ego is healthy and in alignment. And for Dragon Ball fans, this kind of, and if you haven't read the manga, you've probably seen it by now. But Ultra Ego kind of reminds me of Ultra Ego. It's which is actually kind of ironic. That's when Vegeta attains that Ultra Ego whenever he is after he's been meditating. Beerus, the god of destruction, taught him to meditate and all this stuff, and he's that's like Vegeta at peak mental clarity. And then he Toriyama used a lot of symbolism that I don't know if he even meant to. That can be God just working through him. That's in other words, Toriyama, you could say, oh, Toriyama didn't mean that, but again, Toriyama is like the pen, and there's a higher author. Just like it'd be like Goku coming aware and looking at breaking the fourth wall and saying, oh, knowing that he's been led by Toriyama. So kind of like that. And anyway, the imagery of the dragon cast into the lake of fire in the Bible, in Revelation, also resonates with tantric symbolism. The dragon, or the twin serpents, represents raw instinctual energy, lust, craving, and primal desires. And the lake of fire is not a punishment, but purification, the blazing fire of awareness. So when the dragon is thrown into the lake, it is transmuted rather than destroyed. Lust is revealed not as something evil, but as an incomplete energy that, which recognized and elevated, becomes love. This is the tantric principle of transformation. And it's, a lot of people look at the, I forget what it's, the sacral chakra, I think, the sacral, in the, and it's it almost looks like a sun, they use the color, maybe we're getting this mixed up, but kind of reminds me of like I said, the Kundalini rises up. And it maybe, before it gets to the heart, it passes through that, the sacral chakra. I think it's what it is. It's like a sun. So, maybe that's a way, it purifies itself. I don't know. Anybody who can add to that, throw it down in the comments. But that kind of just comes to mind, is that's kind of what that comes to mind. Because lust is kind of a big deal for a lot of people today. And that doesn't even have to be sexual lust. That can be like lusting after material objects, lusting after experiences, fame, recognition, etc. But that is like transmuted into like humility and peace and stuff. So continuing on, alongside the dragon in Revelation, though, is the false prophet. So the dragon is instinct misdirected, and the false prophet is thought misdirected. It symbolizes when the mind is severed from the heart, the moon forgetting its dependence on the sun. The false prophet is not an external villain, but the ego masquerading as divine authority, the voice of separation cloaked in spiritual dress. And you see this outwardly with like your false prophets, mainstream religion, churches. Like that's like the outward. That's the ego masquerading as a spiritual authority. And most of them are just ignorant. They're just the blind leading the blind who have been programmed by the blinder. So there's no really finger pointing. That's the thing. You can point fingers and who did this and who's wrong. Point fingers. They made this. They did this. And it's like, whenever you point fingers, what you're doing is you're looking into the past. It's like society like doesn't need to really point fingers. Like there is a time to like obviously you hold accountability and stuff, but some stuff is just like, you know, if someone's brainwashed or like you found someone's brainwashed into doing something or from birth, you know, are you really gonna blame them? Like a dog or something that's been raised by its owner to like attack people and stuff. Is it really the dog's fault or the owner? And even then, who taught the owner that to treat animals like? So you have to like really, you can point fingers all the way back to the beginning of time, but it's like, okay, instead of looking in the past, what can we do now? So just wanted to throw that in there. Like, okay, let's just like forget. That's where forgiveness comes into play. It's like, okay, let's just forgive everybody. Let's all just clear each other's slates, and let's say what can we work towards now? With what can we do instead of competing and pointing fingers? Let's collaborate and accept that we all, you know, have made mistakes and move on. So the beast and dragon would be instinct and desire unpurified. The false prophet is intellect and ego when it's, you know, unaligned with, you know, spirit or unillumined. And both, when they're cast into the fire of awareness, are annihilated, or are not annihilated, but redeemed. Instinct becomes devotion, desire becomes love, thought becomes wisdom, and the moon once more reflects the sun with clarity. Thus, the prophecy is not about the end of the world, but the end of misperception. It is an alchemy of the human being. When lust and ego are transmuted, the whole being becomes radiant with the original sun of awareness. Let me see if I can zoom this in, actually. All right, there we go. That's probably better. Awareness. The evolution of music, light, and shadow. This is just basically what I'm saying here is music in its essence and art in general is a reflection of the collective human experience and interplay of light and shadow, consciousness and unconsciousness. The evolution of genres like blues, rock, and rap illustrate how different cultures have channeled these energies, and that's sometimes that's usually unconsciously. And I kind of learned this when I was in high school. We had a bunch of, or yeah, actually it started in middle school. We'd have like rap battles on the playground or at lunch and stuff. And I remember I started, freestyling and stuff. And if anybody has freestyled, you know how that stuff like comes up from your unconscious. It's like you're tapped in. It's like, it's not like you're thinking there with a formula like coming up like some people think you're like just thinking that up. It's like more like the lyrics are just coming to you. And that's like what you're doing, and channeling and all that in general is just basically tapping into your unconscious or the collective unconscious of the larger mind of God. And this is also where you have, like for instance, I've had dreams, and other people have probably had them, where you have dreams where languages are spoken that you have no idea of, like the words. For instance, I had a dream where I've had different dreams where like Spanish words have been used, or even like Sanskrit words, and then and the only reason I know that is because I wake up and write the word down, look it up, and I'm like, wow, okay, that was very relevant, and I had no frame of reference for that word in my own mind, never heard it in my life. But in the larger mind of God, it's out there, and that's where you get, like, I think we mentioned it before, people going into comas and coming out of them with learned experience, with learned talents, and like people like literally coming out of comas with like learning a language that, like, how did you learn that? It was never in your mind or your environment. It was like because they're tapping into that larger mind of the unconscious. And this is for another story, but that's where like imaginary Bigfoot, aliens and all that live in the unconscious realm all around us, but that's like another layer of reality that we can't tap into, at least with our physical Like you can basically when you communicate, like all these people saying they channel aliens and angels and demons. It's like what they're doing is they're just tapping into the mind of God. You know, they realize everything's within them because angels, demons, all that stuff's in your head in a weird way and without. So, and that's why they have to use fear. Demons use fear also to control you because they know that you have all the power. It's like like that. They have to like use that trick you into not believing that. Rock and roll. So rock and roll, particularly in the early days, was a vehicle for expressing repressed energy, sexuality, rebellion, and primal instincts. And I noticed I used to be into a lot of rock and roll. I still like it, but I was like, really studying it and playing guitar. And like Hendrix and Paul McCartney would say things talking about how kind of like almost like they're tapping into forces, channeling in the music. And Jimi Hendrix's Voodoo Child, for instance, is a great example. Even the title suggests a connection to mystical or unconscious forces, and Hendrix himself acknowledged the raw power of spiritual power. And I don't know. I have some. Okay. Yeah, Little Richard, for instance, said, "My true belief about rock and roll is this: I believe this kind of music is demonic. A lot of the beats were taken from voodoo, from the voodoo drums. If you study music rhythms, like I have, you'll see that this is true. I believe that kind of music is driving people from Christ. It is contagious." It's Little Richard. And he was right. And it's not all rock and roll. But that's where you got to be careful about like taking drugs and, basically being in the ego, like all about pleasure chasing and all that, pleasure seeking, because what you're likely doing is you're not consciously aware of it, but that's where you make an opening for these demonic forces to a window into your mind for them to express through your thoughts. And then you just have a thought and you think you're just making a song, but it's like the demons, like you have something whispered in your ear, like, yeah, you say this and that, that's a good song, that's a good line. And then that you express that into the world and manifest the opposite of the kingdom of heaven onto earth in the outer. So you gotta so this is a way you can like kind of see that. And voodoo is the lifeblood of the blues, which is in turn the backbone of modern music. A lot of music thrives on that, or has. And I think I've noticed personally a turn back to more soulful music that is more less ego-based and more spiritual. So that's actually cool and promising. Even in the mainstream, I've noticed that on the underlying themes, there's a lot more soulful music. So that's awesome. So even if it doesn't necessarily seem like that on the surface, if you actually go look at the lyrics and like the vibe of it, yeah, it has gotten better. So I used to be a big gatekeeper of music. That's why I went to classic rock. I didn't like modern music as much, but at the time. But anyway, rap is another the popular modern expression of the shadow today, and this is a good example. Like today, particularly in its commercial form, often glorifies aspects of life that are destructive: violence, drug use, and materialism. This is like ego. This is just like, unfortunately, it's not like inherently like rap music satanic, but the modern way that it's been used, it's became a vehicle for satanic expression. And like I said, I used to like rap and hip hop and all that, and I still like it. It's just I don't. A lot of it you can see, and still you can learn. I'm glad that it's out there because you can see this contrast and like learn. But and I've seen a lot of rappers and hip hop songs too are even like actually coming out of that ego to, aligning with spirit because like God's at work, and so it's not like rap's bad, rock's bad, but it's like just be conscious and aware, and it's you can see. I'm just using this as an example because like country music, it can be any form of music, can be good or bad, or not even really good or bad, but like expressing, the ego or whatnot. So that's just what I was gonna say. And like right there, evolution of music testament to channel both light and shadow. So you can like use rock to channel light. And matter of fact, like a lot of these artists who end up dead, like the 27 Club and like Michael Jackson, like these like suspicious artists, like if you look at all of them, there's a pattern where they may start off like doing a bunch of like egoic music, drug use and partying, and then as soon as they come over here, like even Tupac, like look at some of the music he made later on, like that was bringing awareness to things. It's like as soon as they started to step out of that ego and like question things and like say, and start being more in the spirit, it's like they get taken out. So that's not to say like they were unprotected or nothing. It's just they weren't. A lot of them step out of the ego, but they don't, or they're still in the ego, but it's, they're not necessarily. A lot of them are just. A lot of them don't necessarily aren't aligned with God, but they're not aligned with ego, so they're like susceptible. They don't have the armor of God, you could say, at that time. That's why they're vulnerable. And the devil's just waiting for and then even if they do, like he's just waiting for you to slip up so he can have a window or whatever, Anyway, that's another story, but it's just a way to kind of see this out in the world, like, Anyway, awareness, mind, body, spirit, balance. Most people I didn't know this, but most people go through life on autopilot, like thoughts, emotions, and reactions just run in the background, shaping decisions without even conscious awareness. It's like a default mode. So basically, awareness of thoughts, balancing the mind. Imagine two people who with equally restless minds. So you have one person A who's aware of their thoughts. They notice their thoughts. They see them passing by their awareness. Like they're aware of their thoughts. Even if they act self-sabotagingly, they're conscious of it. So for instance, like when I was smoking cigarettes, I'd be like, man, I shouldn't be smoking these. Like, and I'm not saying it out loud, but I'd be thinking like, a lot of people, apparently, I want to think I read somewhere that 85% of people are not aware of their thoughts, and or something like that. Yeah, then you have person B, unaware. Thoughts appear and disappear like invisible scripts. They act automatically without noticing the process of the consequence. And maybe this is what an extrovert is like. And no one's inherently like concretely stuck in any extrovert or introvert. Because when I was a kid, I was super extroverted. Didn't think about nothing, was just outwardly focused. And then when I got into like high school, I became more of an introvert. Especially when I smoked weed. Not saying that that's a good thing, but to do. Not saying to go do that, but that is one thing weed will make you do, is like kind of aware of your thoughts. So I guess if you want a baby psychedelic, smoke weed once, and you can kind of just to kind of get that. And I'm not encouraging that because you can just meditate, but people who have smoked weed can say, probably were like, yeah, it does make you more aware of your thoughts. And that's where, but at the same time, that's where you get conspiracy theories. People see those thoughts and that's their shadow bubbling up, and then they like shadow project and then come up with these conspiracy theories. And it's kind of like, it's just because I've been there too. So anyway, awareness of feelings. Yeah, so you want to be aware of your thoughts and aware of your body and feelings. And it's not just about fitness or health, it's about somatic awareness. So you want to be like, when you have emotions or like tension in your stomach, and I'm still like getting better at this, because I'll hold like I notice my stomach if I'm like anxious, maybe like my face, like you'll like feel sometimes like your eyebrows, like or your face is tense, and you like gotta, okay, relax, like you'll like, or you'll notice your stomach, your abs are like kind of tensed up, and like, okay, relax, let loose. So the body will tell you a lot of things. It's kind of like this, how we say the unconscious speaks through symbols. It's kind of like that. It's more of a feeling, and that'll train you. Being aware of your body is really, and thoughts aligns the moon and sun, or, well, not really the moon and sun, I guess, but it brings awareness to the body, because the body and mind are both moon. So it brings awareness to that and aligns them. And awareness of this mental, anxiety isn't just mental. It might tighten your chest, make your tongue turn. Okay, same what we're talking about. Balancing the spirit, awareness of consciousness. At a deeper level, balancing the spirit is recognizing the awareness in which both thoughts and feelings arise. So, you're not just aware of those. It's almost like you turn, like you look at yourself. Like understand that like recognize that awareness, like the I am, the witness that underlies all experience, and that may be the first step. And this is where meditation is really good. There's guided meditations. There's there's so many different types of meditation. There's really no correct way to do it. But just having that awareness to where you can, a lot of people this is where a lot of people freak out, I think, on have bad trips, is because they think they're dying and stuff. It's because they are, the prefrontal cortex will shut down on psychedelics or in dreams or whatever too. And you're more in that. It's almost like you're just in that witness state. Your thoughts are like quiet, and like you're just in completely immersed, and it's shocking to some people. It's like a culture shock thing, kind of like that. When you go to a new environment, you just feel out of place. But it's like, it's nothing bad about it really. But that's what meditation and like psychedelics kind of show people. The awareness gap in social dynamics. Being aware can make places feel alien. Like we were saying, kind of like a culture shock. Most people operate on autopilot. They just react habitually without noticing their mental or emotional patterns. For someone who is highly aware, this creates social energy mismatch. Conversations feel shallow or repetitive. You notice layers of emotion or motives that others do not. Connection gaps. Deeper philosophical conversations are hard to sustain. It feels like talking to a wall sometimes. Decision-making mismatch. You think in patterns, anticipate consequences, while others just follow habits. And once you spiritually awaken, as they say, and become aware. This is why a lot of spiritual people, they say, "Oh, you've changed," and all this or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, you have, and that's a good thing, because that's the whole change. It's like the nature, it's nature. Everything changes. If you're not changing, you're not growing. So, to be honest, but creative frustration, ideas bounce off the wall, or mental depth isn't matched. Awareness is portable, even if your environment isn't aligned. Your inner life can still be cultivated. Conclusion, mind. So notice your thoughts, respond instead of react. And Hinduism is so advanced there, like the Upanishads and stuff. They cover a lot of this stuff. Like I don't know how they it's actually very inspiring how they knew all of this stuff thousands of years ago and preserve the knowledge. It's actually wild, bro. I would, the Upanishads is like cool. So I got this right here. This big book, the Upanishads, and like they really, you don't even have to read all that. There's other like the Ashtavakra Gita and Samhita Gita. Like there's a lot of good texts in the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, shout out Hinduism. So the inner source of outer division. Humanity often perceives the world as fragmented, left versus right, us versus them. The inner source of outer division. Across history, there's been a split. On a micro level, each human carries duality. Light and dark, love, hate, creation and destruction. Oh, hey, sorry about that. I had a call come in. Anyway, here we go. So, there you have that. You see how everything wants to split and fragment so they can control society. The external hells we see in society, the cruelty, injustice, and chaos are reflections of the internal turmoil. So collectively, I guess what I was getting here is when you heal yourself, you become immune to, like it says, I am in this world but not of it. You become like that. It's like a light walking in the darkness. You become like a star walking through the dark sky. And when everybody or enough people do that, and you have all these lights, then that's how you manifest heaven on earth, basically, is manifesting it inside. And it's kind of like a democracy, so majority rule. And right now, or in the past, and it's changing, the pendulum swings. It's swinging back into the light, where it will stay. So basically, yeah, that's how you manifest heaven, is by collectively everybody votes on it democratically by aligning with God and unifying their inner polarities and all that. So that's basically what we're getting to in this chapter. You have the ability to influence the world in profound ways. We act selfishly, cultivate anger. If you've watched 7 Deadly Sins, it kind of reminds me of King Arthur, how he has the power of chaos, and the show's still ongoing, but it kind of reminds me of that, how he's kind of like, when he becomes possessed by chaos or fragmented, he manifests hell instead of his kingdom. Because that's the whole thing. He wanted to manifest a Camelot or his kingdom of heaven, but he got into ego, and the show's still ongoing, so I don't want to go too far in that, but you kind of see the same themes in that. So when we purify ourselves, we stop acting unconsciously, Okay. So that's basically what I was saying there. Now, and here's an image of everybody united after, I don't know if that's World War I or II. I think it's World War I, but Sexuality, pleasure, and purpose. So, oh yeah. During my reflections, I began to see sexuality through a different lens. To be straight may not merely mean being attracted to the opposite sex. It might instead point to being attracted to reproduction, to the creation and continuation of life. So conversely, homosexuality might not simply be about being attracted to the same sex, but perhaps could be seen as an orientation toward pleasure and hedonism. So this raised a profound question. What is the underlying impulse behind sexuality? Is it primarily about reproduction or pleasure? So for example, when somebody reaches an advanced age and or 85, and you lose all interest in sex, would you still call them straight, gay, or bi? If the sexual impulse is completely gone, does the label still carry meaning? And the same is true for children before they reach puberty. Are they straight, gay, or bi? They're not attracted to, they're not trying to have sex at all for pleasure or reproduction. So, you know what I'm saying? And this may explain that more. So perhaps this shows that what we call sexuality is actually about a deeper relationship to life. Some are drawn to create and reproduce, while others to experience and enjoy. This line of thought opens up a more nuanced perspective. Sexuality might reflect whether one is oriented towards life's creative flow or procreation, or life's pleasurable flow, hedonism, which is aligned with ego, really. That's not to condemn sex, but when you're just led by, pleasure and like a dog, it's kind of like a raccoon or something eating trash, or a dog eating trash, or cotton candy. Neither must be condemned, but the distinction does matter, especially for those seeking balance, discipline, and spiritual growth, because that's a good way you get possessed by your, ego. Conscious pleasure can be wise and nourishing if done intentionally, but unbalanced pleasure seeking can pull one away from higher purposes. And a good way to know, if it's hedonism is, would you still want to be in a relationship with someone if you signed a contract saying you'll never have sex with them? Would you still? That's how you can tell if is it love or lust, homosexual, straight, or whatever. Would you still want to be in a relationship with them if you knew you would never have sex? So that's a good way. And that's why you probably don't see a lot of people getting married at 70 years old or whatever, when they're past their sexual time. And that's why probably a lot of the angels are said not to marry. The angels of heaven are said not to marry or have sex, because they're evolved past the ego and all that. There's no need for it. And plus, sex is not even that good once you have once you've experienced true bliss. Sex is really, like I said, it's like cotton candy to a prime rib steak or ribeye steak. So, if all you've ever eaten is cotton candy, though, you're gonna think it's good, but then you have some real food. But anyway, semen retention, social control, and the elite strategy. So, not to fully demonize sex, as we're just thinking here, learning how to learn and think for ourselves. So, throughout history, society has been fascinated with this idea of sexual restraint, particularly the retention of semen, often framed as spiritual health, longevity benefits, etc. They suggest that the publicly stated spiritual rationales may have served pragmatic purposes for social and political control. Across cultures, the retention of sexual energy was not only about personal power or mystical power, it also intersected with the interest of elites seeking to consolidate power, manage populations, and direct human energy toward goals that benefited the state or ruling class. So, ancient China, Taoist, sexual alchemy, and martial readiness. During the warring states, China was a landscape of near-constant warfare between rival states. Survival, power, and social order depended heavily on discipline, focus, and physical and mental activity, or vitality. It is within this context that Taoist sexual alchemy emerged, advocating for the retention of semen to conserve Jing, or vital essence, increase longevity, and strengthen personal vitality. Now, while these texts framed these practices as spiritual or health-enhancing, there was a clear practical dimension. Individuals who retained sexual energy were more likely to be focused, resilient, and physically robust. And these are all qualities that the ruling class would want to see in, their soldiers, strategists, and ruling elites. Though population control was probably not a primary concern, at least in this time, The practice indirectly served the interest of the elite by enhancing the discipline and vitality of those under authority. And this is where you get, sex. They say F or F or I don't want to cuss, but rhymes with duck or fight. That's where you get that. That energy is expressed through ducking or fighting. So they don't want you over here like the hippies. Like literally, you can see this in the hippies. Like instead of going to war, they all said, "Oh, free love." It was like it was the complete opposite. So if you're a ruling class who wants to have a war, yeah, you're gonna say, you might frame or lean into it. Maybe it's a truth. I think there is some truth to this, perhaps. But you're gonna really push that. You're gonna like it. Then you're gonna use that to push your agenda. Like, oh yeah, conserve your sexual energy. Don't be over here having sex. Come over here and fight this war and get us. Go kill these people so we can get rich off of their blood. So we're just looking at it. So now we're gonna move on to ancient India, Vedic and post-Vedic semen retention practices. So in India, semen retention was codified in the Vedic period. 1500 to 500 BCE, and later was elaborated in Ayurvedic and Tantric text. The Vedic concept of Brahmacharya, which prescribes celibacy for students of sacred knowledge, was presented as a spiritual discipline designed to cultivate wisdom, discipline, and personal virtue. Ayurveda emphasized semen, shukra, as a vital essence, warning that excessive loss could weaken the body, mind, and spirit. Now, at first glance, these teachings appear purely spiritual. However, deeper analysis suggests practical social functions, such as discipline and obedience. By removing young men from sexual activity and engaging them in rigorous study and ritual, elites effectively train populations to follow the hierarchy and social rules, reinforcing caste structures and obedience. Indirect population management. By encouraging celibacy also among certain groups, the elites could limit reproduction in a controlled way, conserving resources and maintaining the advantage of privileged classes. So if you're like a farmer, you would divide up your, you don't want to, or whatever, if you're wildlife management and you don't want to just necessarily have all your animals, reproducing, because then there's not enough resources to go around or whatever. So obviously you're not, it'd be kind of like obvious and people would fight back if they were to be told like, you can't have kids, man. You can't have kids. So what they do, instead of doing that, they frame it as like a virtue. Like, oh, having kids is in line with God and you're going to get superpowers, semen retention. And there is science. Like, you can look scientifically that semen definitely is like, it's full of like zinc and I forget what it's all full of, but like it does have a lot of like nutrients in it. And I think we get into that, but so I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, semen retention's a lie. Go and watch the Hub 5 times a day. No, not saying that, bro. But anyway, channeling energy toward elite goals, while framed as spiritual growth, the energy preserved through celibacy could be redirected into ritual, intellectual pursuits, or martial practice, like fighting for wars, benefiting society in ways that align with elite interest. So this is just an example of how not everything's black and white, good and evil on the surface. There's it's usually like kind of gray. You can use that, anything can be used for any sort of motive. But anyway, this suggests the spiritual framing of semen retention also masks political and social control mechanisms, allowing compliance to appear voluntary and virtuous rather than coerced. Cloaking control and spiritual authority across cultures. Common themes emerge. Elites often justify roles that serve their own interests through moral or spiritual authority, telling the population that God commands you to abstain, or it is spiritually meritorious to retain semen. Is far more effective than issuing, like we were saying, a direct government mandate. So it's a lot easier to say semen retention will make you think clear, and you'll, after 90 days of nofap, you get more energy and you bench 10% more. It's easier to say that and get people like, oh yeah, wanting to do it, than if the government said, you are no longer allowed to have sex, and if you do, you are going to prison. It's a lot, that's a revolution, if you do that, if they were to do that. People perceive obedience as voluntary and morally right, which increases compliance. Elites can concentrate, because it's always interesting, it's always, and then you have like the Catholic Church, how they, obviously we know about their little escapades and all that after they like preach like sexual morality, and then they like have in the past have done some things. So it's kind of interesting how they will tell us that, but then go and do shit. Anyway, elites can concentrate resources and power, while lower classes follow respective roles, often without questioning the purpose. These practices can also discipline populations, encouraging focus, restraint. Okay, modern parallels. Many young people in countries like Japan or the United States delay or avoid reproduction due to economic pressures, societal expectations, or cultural norms, effectively creating a population retention effect without explicit mandates. Okay. So like even the use of like even the pushing of like OnlyFans and porn, like you know how all this stuff is AI, sex robots, if that's gonna be a thing, I don't know. But that can all be a form of like population control. And or yeah, just like the price of things, like you hear like it's too expensive to have kids, you know, like that could be like by design, bro. Let's make everything expensive as heck so they can't even afford kids and you know. Anyway, it's just to get you thinking, but sexual frustration in certain populations, particularly among socially marginalized men, can manifest as anger, resentment, or aggression, echoing the, you know, ducker fight dynamic observed historically in warrior cultures. And just as in ancient times, social systems, whether spiritual, economic, or cultural, can channel human energy in ways that benefit broader structures of power, even unintentionally. Insight and implications. It's often been framed for spiritual or health practices. However, a closer look suggests that these practices have a dual purpose: spiritual or health benefits for the individual. You know, it can be good for that. I'm not saying that it's not, because it can be. But it can also be a practical social benefit for the elites. Population management, resource control, obedience, and channeling energy towards elite-defined goals, like, you know, having a bunch of like tension built up, so you'll go and take that energy out on fighting someone. You hear like Mike Tyson, I may say that, like how Mike Tyson or other fighters, I don't know who exactly, but a lot of fighters will abstain from sex before a fight, so they have all this like built up energy and like aggression, like, and there's a reason historically for that. So yeah, they can cloak social control in the guise it's morality or spirituality. That's why you got to watch a lot of this stuff that's been pushed by authority, because they can use that to like manipulate you. That's why you know, think for yourself and like ask questions and stuff if you want. I mean, you can do what you want, but rise and fall, the role of social stability. An interesting pattern emerges when we examine the historical trajectory of semen retention. Prominence of these practices often correlates with periods of social stress, conflict, or scarcity. Yes, this is interesting, and diminishes during times of peace and stability. So, like in ancient China, when Taoism or Taoist sexual alchemy flourished, it was during a warring states period. It was when they were in constant warfare. So vitality, focus, and martial readiness was highly valuable. But during more stable dynasties afterwards, the practice became increasingly niche as social priorities shifted more toward reproduction, family, and filial duty. So after in the times of peace, sex is more accepted. Interesting. And then in ancient India, Brahmacharya and Ayurvedic retention practices were integral during periods of social and military pressure, helping to discipline populations and reinforce hierarchy. But later, during the rise of devotional movements and more peaceful social structures, the strict practice of sexual retention lost its social or societal centrality, surviving mainly just in monastic and tantric communities. Even in medieval Europe, enforced celibacy among clergy and monastics was most prominent in contexts where elites required dedicated, disciplined religious actors to maintain social order. As society stabilized and secular understanding of sexuality increased during the Renaissance and Reformation, the mystical and practical enforcement of sexual restraint waned. A cross-cultural general principle appears. Times of conflict or scarcity of resources amplify the social utility of sexual restraint or abstinence, while in periods of peace and prosperity, the emphasis is shifted towards reproduction, personal freedom, and social stability. And that's kind of interesting, even from a like more modern day. Like after after World War II in the '60s, that's when all the free love and baby boomers, or during World War, like, you know, you had all these people being born and stuff, and so maybe you can even see that in that. This observation reinforces the idea that, but I kind of wonder if I don't know. I don't know if people like. I mean, to be honest too, like before that, people were more religious and stuff, and didn't just go around sleeping around. And people got married and they stayed. They were more. It was a little different back then. If you like like your grandparents were a lot usually different than the younger generation on how they view sex, and that's just because of the way they've been programmed by society, because all that. Anyway, now that's not to say that there isn't some truth, like I said, into retention or abstinence, because there is. But anything good or bad or beneficial or non-beneficial, these ruling elites will just use anything. They don't care if it's good or bad, if it benefits them. So semen is vital energy, ancient wisdom, and modern. I guess what I'm saying is, don't rely on the elite or authority to tell you what's good or bad. Like, you can see for yourself. Semen composition. Now, this is how we kind of do back up, like, scientifically, how abstinence is actually powerful. So semen is a complex fluid made of both sperm cells and secretions from male reproductive system. Spermatozoa are the carriers of genetic material. The majority of semen is seminal plasma, a mixture of nutrients and enzymes produced by the seminal vesicles, prostate gland. Anyway, it has zinc in there, which supports testosterone production, immune function, magnesium, calcium, and potassium, amino acids, proteins, fructose. Now, what's interesting is the total volume of an average ejaculation is typically 2 to 6 milliliters, with nutrients dispersed throughout. And what I was going to get to is, so if you ejaculate 3 times in one day, you could be collectively releasing up to 6 to 15 milligrams of zinc, where the daily intake recommended by doctors is 11 milligrams. So if you, yank it 2 or 3 times a day, you literally might be deficient in zinc, and you're not going to find, you're literally, it'd be like if you're working out. Like another way to kind of look at this is, imagine zinc is like protein. It'd be like if you're working out and then you drink 100 grams of protein a day, or 150 or whatever, and then it'd be like if you beat off and all of a sudden you lost like 50% or 70% of your daily protein intake. So you're really screwing yourself doing that. At least not in moderation. If you just do that all the time, it kind of is like they say, like the cup, like you have like the cup with water in it. It's like you're spilling your cup everywhere. So I mean, the cup can overflow, like, just moderation, dude, like, basically. But anyway, if you're going to do it. Some men may notice fatigue, reduced stamina, or subtle dips in energy. So, I'm not going to get too deep in that, but that's kind of like a scientific way of looking at that. And then you even know, like, when you, semen, when you don't ejaculate or whatever, that's just recycle. It'll break it down and recycle those nutrients and stuff in your body. So it's like it's a really nutrient-rich fluid, and that could be like the unconscious, intuitive understanding that ancient mystics and stuff did pick up on, but that the elite would weaponize when they needed to. Not to say that it's wrong, but it's just to say, why are the elite now preaching? Why is it all of a sudden popular to nofap? Why is it all? Maybe we're about to go to World War III. Who knows? That's why, you never know. Getting everybody tensed up, like, kind of reminds me of like Andrew Tate and all them, like getting everybody in a fighting mood. You can just feel the energy in the air, like what they're trying to do. So, heaven and hell and the nervous system. Perhaps what we call heaven corresponds to the, like we say, they say the kingdom of heaven's within you. So perhaps what the heaven corresponds to is the parasympathetic nervous system, or the PNS, while hell corresponds to the sympathetic. So you have two nervous systems, you have your central nervous system, and it has two sides of the coin. Sympathetic state, or the sympathetic nervous system, could be referred to as when this dominates your nervous system, it may be the hell state, and this is when you're in a fight or flight mode. It prepares the body for action, threat, and survival. When the sympathetic nervous system is dominant, the heart rate and blood pressure rise, muscles tense, they're ready for fight or flight, digestion slows or shuts down, The mind becomes hypervigilant, scanning for danger. This state is useful when survival is at stake, but living in it chronically feels like being trapped in a personal hell. There's anxiety, constant striving, frustration, and a sense that life is one long battle. It's like always being in, fight mode. Like, this is probably where a lot of prisoners are when they have to, looking over their shoulders thinking they're going to get stabbed in the bathroom or something. They probably are in this hell state. So you could think of the sympathetic nervous system as the masculine energy within the nervous system. The active, moving forward, protective, aggressive when needed state. It's about doing, asserting, and taking action. Okay, so it's not bad. It's just when it's out of balance, when this is all you're into, you never rest, you can be in this state. Now the opposite is the parasympathetic, or the heaven state, and this is when it's dominant. You want this to be more dominant. And this is when, of course you don't neglect either, but the parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest mode when it takes the lead. Rest and digest mode. So when it takes the lead, your heart rate slows and blood pressure normalizes. Like when you're eating a meal, you relax, muscles relax. This is like meditation. And digestion, repair, and healing processes turn on. The mind feels safe, present, and connected. So whenever you're reading a good calming book, resting in nature, maybe playing an instrument or meditating, this is when you activate parasympathetic state, maybe like getting a massage or whatever. So this is when you feel at peace, grounded and whole. It aligns with nirvana, or it aligns closely with the descriptions of union, nirvana, or enlightenment found in many traditions. And something that's coming to mind, like this being heaven and hell, our inner Christ consciousness or consciousness or whatever. Like Christ has the keys to hell and heaven. So it's not necessarily like neglecting this. You use this as it's needed though. Just like Christ can go into hell, if he wants, and do whatever, or he can come to earth as well. This could be, you could look at this as like the physical world, how it's a go and do things, and the hell state, when it's dominated, it's kind of like hustle culture, kind of like that, and then you have the inverse. So you don't really want either to dominate. You want to balance both of these. So don't get locked too much on the heaven state and like, oh, this is bad because it's hell state, but that's just how it came out when I was writing it. But you want to balance these and not neglect either of them, because like this is also exercise and stuff, like taking care of your body, tackling your goals, and working on things. So it's not bad. It's just you don't want to be dominated by this, and you don't want to be like dominated by this either. Or you could be like I'm forgetting the names, but like it's in like, kind of reminds me of Greek mythology, how I think it's Odysseus, how they land on that island where they have like a fruit. There's like a bunch of beautiful women and there's some fruit and they eat it, and basically it's like they become blissed out, and a lot of the people become prisoners on that island because it's so like, and I think a lot of his crewmates, Odysseus, his crewmate, I maybe think getting myths mixed up, but if anybody knows that'd be cool to put in the comments, or you can look it up. And basically you don't want to get stuck here because it can be like a siren's call, and you like never like grow basically because you're just sitting here like Caesar eating grapes on a throne, so you never grow, and you want to be able to like be like balanced in both of those. And mindfulness as the gateway. Mindfulness and presence may be the doorway to this heaven state. Research shows that mindfulness practice activate the vagus nerve, the primary channel of the PNS, or parasympathetic nervous system. Slow, deep breathing, like meditating, directly stimulates the parasympathetic nerve. So meditation lowers cortisol, reduces rumination, and decreases sympathetic activation. So yeah, I was going to add something to that. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much all that. The opposite is also true. When we worry, ruminate, and get caught in mental loops, the body interprets that as a form of danger. The result is sympathetic activation, heart racing, shallow breathing, and muscle tension. Yeah, well, I guess what I was saying is, collectively, why life feels like hell is because everybody has been like programmed to stay in this state almost exclusively. Hustle, hustle. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I don't go to sleep till 1 a.m. and I drink me a big coffee and really get coffee. Like you hear like the tape, like no, like not to poke at them because you know they may be doing what they think is actually right. You know they've been taught that too. But that hustle, like coffee, and it keeps you in this state, like a hustle, go-getter energy. And that's why you see in the world it's a hell state. Everybody's stepping on each other's heads, trying to accomplish something, betraying people for $1 and all that. And they haven't slowed down and smelled the flowers, or whatever, as they say. So yeah, we're gonna skip through some of that. Here's some ways to activate the parasympathetic: deep breathing, mindfulness, meditation, gentle movement, like yoga, stretching, or slow walking. Gratitude is a big one. Positive reflection or journaling. Warm baths or relaxing showers. Social connection. Common sympathetic triggers to avoid or moderate. Caffeine and energy drinks and stuff will activate the sympathetic nervous system, and that's why you get jittery and all that. But you know, not to demonize it, but you just have to be moderate at least if you're gonna do it, and be aware of it. Chronic stress and overwork. This is where hustle culture can really do that. Get you in that. I gotta accomplish, man. I gotta do it. I gotta make that A. I gotta make that good grade and get into that college. And excessive screen time. It takes you out of gratitude too. It's like excessive screen time or social media is another big one. Very easy to get caught up in because the rapid stimulation and information overload heightens SNS activity. That's why when you get on social media, you can feel like especially getting into like rage bait and stuff, it will really get you in that fight mode, and just the overall information overload overwhelms your mind and stuff, and so you gotta be careful on that. Sleep deprivation also keeps your sympathetic tone high, and negative emotional, like sitting there worrying about things, will your body reacts to every thought basically. So if you're worrying, it's like stressed out, intense. So if you're working, and yeah, people know this too, if you overwork out, like if you're a bodybuilder or whatever, like I used to work out a lot and weights and stuff, but you cannot grow if you're equally sitting on the couch, not exercising, you're not going to grow. But equally, if you overwork out, if you just like are in the gym 12 hours a day, you're never going to grow either. Actually, you may be worse off than the guy on the couch because you're so that's just kind of an example, like an allegory or whatever. That's when you overwork out or intense, you can stress your body out, your nervous system out, and you eventually will just like crash and feel like crap, or you may get sick even, or that may be the body just trying to force you into taking resting. And so you can look at those as masculine and feminine energies within you. That's how you cultivate the kingdom of heavens. When you choose to attach, entangle, or not that, but when you do choose to attach or entangle on discursive thoughts, you're signaling to your subconscious mind that you prefer noise over peace. So every time that you chase a worry or rehearse a scenario in your head too, you're getting caught in these mental loops, and you're conditioning your inner world or your unconscious mind or your subconscious mind to see this overthinking as the normal state of being, and then it becomes like a habit, like you're always like in your head like thinking. And personally for me, that's one reason I had to get off of weed, especially trying to meditate and stuff. Like smoking weed, I'd like just like sit around and overthink and like da-da-da-da-da and like all that, and that just gets you like, that's where you get conspiracy theories and social anxiety and all that comes from, because you're programming your mind, especially when you're smoking weed all day every day. But anyway, subconscious learns through repetition and attention. It does not discriminate between peace and chaos. It simply amplifies whatever you continually return to. So when you leave that still, quiet presence, the feeling of sitting by a calm lake on a spring afternoon, to dive into mental noise and drama, you're subconsciously saying that you prefer this. You prefer the restlessness over the stillness, and that's what your mind will give you more of, because it's like you program it to give you that. So each time you engage in thought, movement, and mental drama, you're reinforcing that presence. The mind becomes wired for go, 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 rarely satisfied with the silence. And I've wondered before, and I know it's not literally, but it's kind of like, it's like a political cartoon kind of thing. Like you could kind of imagine like a lot of hustle. Like you can kind of like even imagine like a little cartoon in a newspaper, where it's like it's showing heaven and it shows a bunch of people in here and they're like, what do we do now? We gotta hustle, we gotta work. And it's like they can't. It's like they imagine like someone gets to heaven and they can't even like enjoy it because they're just like go. What do I gotta do? What do I gotta do? I want to work. It's like they're like it's wired for that. Over time, stillness becomes familiar, calm becomes a natural rhythm, noise becomes optional, attention, after all, is a vote. And whenever each moment of presence is a vote, like what you're like casting your vote. This is Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. So be still and know that you're not you are God, but that God's within you. Like that still awareness. And I'll be exalted among the heathen. I'll be exalted in the earth. I don't know why the ark. I wonder if that's the Ark of the Covenant. It kind of came to mind. Like anyway, it's for another thing. Anyway, mindfulness through the body. That'd be interesting if the Ark of the Covenant is like within you, kind of. Mindfulness through the body. Many people think mindfulness is just about watching your thoughts. While this is part of the practice, it can also keep the mind highly active. So that can actually be a trap, dude. I forgot about this myself. I'm glad I'm reading this because I needed to hear this again. So when you are aware of your thoughts, basically what I was saying, it's kind of easier actually because a lot of like gurus or spiritual people say, watch your thoughts, just be aware of your thoughts. But it may be unintentionally, or while this is part of the practice, it also keeps the mind highly active, which may unintentionally maintain sympathetic nervous system activity, especially if those thoughts are stressful or triggering. So a more easier way to instead of saying watching your thoughts, a simpler, more direct path to mindfulness is to focus awareness, bring your awareness out not just on your thoughts, but onto your feelings and bodily sensations. And then let your thoughts arise. You're not ignoring your thoughts, but you're not focused on them 100. You're not just sitting in your mind like a hunter in a deer blind, looking for thoughts. You basically do that in your body, feel your body. But a thought could be like a bird landing in the tree above you in the deer blind. You're still aware of it. You can look up, but your eyes are down here in the emotion, in the feeling and body and sense. Kind of reminds me of Dragon Ball Z, when they sense energy. It's not like when I say feeling, it's not like how a lot of, it's not necessarily just an emotional feeling. You want to be aware of emotions, but it's more of sensing, sensing, all your senses, taste, sight, smell, feeling, hearing. Imagine how if you watch Dragon Ball Z or anything, or Dragon Ball, it's kind of like how when Goku learns to sense energy, and he just still and just awareness, and just that makes it easier in my opinion to so you can focus your awareness on your feelings, bodily sensations, and the state of the nervous system itself. So the body becomes a gateway. Instead of trying to chase thoughts or control them, you bring your attention to the rise and fall of your breath. That's where breath control comes into. The feeling in your chest or gut, areas of tension in the body, emotional sensations. So, I needed to hear this myself because I was actually kind of recently getting caught in the mind too much. And that's where exercise can be really good. Anybody's exercise, body-mind connection. Whenever you if you don't have that body-mind connection, and I learned this the hard way because I just go through the reps and shit, all that. But you're not really, anybody who does bodybuilding can word this better than me. You're not getting the most optimal results doing that. But when you're really focused, really feeling the muscle fibers and seeing it in your mind, and it's really one with it, it's just a different experience. And one way to visualize this, back to Dragon Ball, as I've watched that, and it's just a very popular modern mythology kind of archetypal mirror. Really, you can learn so much, which is cool. Because people can learn, God speaks through everything, and He's given us Dragon Ball to even not to just enjoy as entertainment, but you can go rewatch it, and it's you'll see so much wisdom in it. But it kind of reminds me of Goku and Vegeta. Goku's autonomous ultra instinct is similar to your parasympathetic nervous system in action. No thought, just flow, calm, precise, effortless, perfectly timed. Your body seems to know exactly what to do, and you aren't forcing it. It's a state when you feel as though all your In this state, it feels as though all enemies, including unwanted thoughts, urges, and temptations, are effortlessly defeated as they arise, just like Goku dispatches his opponents in this form. It's just like, then you have ultra ego, which is the sympathetic, you could like look at it as a sympathetic nervous system in this model here. I know I mentioned it earlier, but you can use different, it's not, you get what I'm saying. You can use different models, but and in this model, we're using an ultra ego to represent the sympathetic nervous system. So raw power, forceful, reactive, and effective. Like Vegeta would be like the body going like, if you've like read the manga, he's kind of like this, driven by stress, intensity, and the need to overcome. Some enemies or challenges, especially external physical world situations, do require ego or ultra ego or sympathetic nervous system. You do need to use this. These situations demand conscious thought, strategic action, or even physical exertion to handle effectively. So, we haven't seen this in the manga, but fusion or harmony. So if you fused ultra instinct or the parasympathetic nervous system and ultra ego, sympathetic nervous system, and they work together, you already know like how strong that would be in the manga. So imagine, that's how it is in real life. When you do that, you are unlocking like a whole unimagined, literally. Toriyama never, he passed away before that, but it just kind of shows you the power. This is when you go into angel mode. That's probably what would happen. They'd probably become an angel at that point. They'd be like Whis. But the calm, precise flow of ultra instinct combined with the raw, decisive power of ultra ego allows you to respond perfectly to both internal and external challenges. You are fully present, yet capable of action when needed, unstoppable and whole. Both forms are powerful on their own, but mastery is knowing when to switch and ultimately how to unite them. Mindfulness and body awareness are tools that allow the fusion to occur. So yeah, when you're mindful and aware of your body, this is where the fusion occurs. So when you're mindful of the body and the thoughts, that's like fusion. That's like both of them working together. Letting you live from a place where inner enemies are neutralized and external challenges are met with optimal effectiveness. And here's the thing, like bad people would think, like egoic people would think, oh, I'm going to use this for power, so if anybody's watching that for this reason, you're not going to get what you want, because the ego can't step into this mode. So you can't, you can't, basically when if someone is meditating, your ego is like dropped. So I don't know, you have to be aligned with to get to this mode, I guess what I'm saying is you can't use this for egoic purposes. You can't be an evil person and conquer this, basically, or get this. So it's not even worth trying if you're going to use it for egoic. If you're thinking, I'm going to use this knowledge for domination, like, good luck, dude. You're just going to waste your time. Regulating through the breath. One of the most effective ways to shift from the health state of chronic sympathetic nervous system activation into the heaven state is conscious breathing. So like inhaling deeply and slowly into the belly, allowing it to expand. Exhale longer than you inhale. This is key for activating the vagus nerve. See, I forgot that. So yeah, repeat for several cycles until you feel the body soften. This simple practice helps regulate emotions at the root level rather than getting stuck in mental loops, trying to regulate your thoughts. So like, oh, calm down, don't think that. Just instead of doing all that, don't think that, don't worry, don't stress this. And like, not focus your body, like, pull your awareness to your body, your breathing. The thought trap. So most people spend their day in a whirlwind of thinking like, what do I need to do next? What happened yesterday? What's going on in the news? What do I eat? Do I pay the bills? Even neutral or mundane thoughts can keep the sympathetic nervous system slightly activated if they carry urgency, anticipation, or judgment. Like that. What do I eat? Do I pay the bill? Over time, this creates a subtle but constant state of tension. By contrast, focusing on the present moment experience of this body calms the loop and sends a signal. There is no threat. All is well. This is where the Bible is, like, the Bible has so much wisdom, whether the human creators, the people who wrote it down, meant it to be a population control or a control tool or not. Like, God speaks through all things because he's the author behind it, the pen. Even like the devil or the elite people who think, oh yeah, let's write this religion to control. God's like, oh really? I'm going to actually put symbolic messages in there that will be understood at the time they're needed. So yeah, you'll fall on your own sword basically, and it'll be her own device literally that defeats you. So that's kind of funny. But I guess where I was going with that is it's kind of interesting how the Bible does say, like, this is where this gets in when you have faith in God, and like it's all in God's will, everything's good, it's all exactly how God wants it to go, it's divine timing, everything's perfectly as it is. When you do that, you're like, basically they are intuitively, or the Bible is intuitively given that wisdom. You know, whether the human authors meant it to be that way or not, that is a very sound piece of wisdom that puts you in alignment with this parasympathetic state of like gratitude, faith, like a surrendering it to God. Basically, like it's like letting go. It does put you in that when you do have faith in God, like so. Emotional regulation is spiritual practice. When you regulate emotions through body awareness, you are also training your nervous system to dwell longer in the heaven state. Over time, stress triggers lose their grip, anxiety lessens, you feel grounded, safe, and connected. Many ancient practices of yoga, qigong, tai chi, breathwork, mantra chanting are body-centered. They bypass the overactive mind and directly access biological pathways of peace. A new definition of mindfulness. So mindfulness is not just watching your thoughts. It is an embodied presence, a deep awareness of what is happening in the body, the breath, and the heart in the moment. And you can still be aware of the mind, but I guess you can think of that like a tree, and thoughts are like birds, and like you're hunting, like you're a hunter in the deer blind, your awareness, and you're like looking through the woods and the body, you know, like looking through the woods down here, waiting, just looking at feeling sensations and like movements and like whatnot. But when you do have a thought pop up, like a bird up here, quack, quack, or maybe a squirrel, tick, 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 like you can like be aware of that too, and like notice it, and like look up there and say okay, and then like get back to like your hunt, you know, kind of. That's one way to kind of look at it. So by choosing to feel instead of think, you can anchor yourself in a state of calm and make parasympathetic living your default. And even hunters, who when you are hunting or whatever, like you are, it is peaceful, dude. That's why a lot of people love to go hunt and fish. It's like you get into that state naturally. So then you go ahead and like back this like a little more up. Maybe I don't want to do this. There we go. So balancing mind and body pleasures. Let me see how long we've been going real fast. I had a phone call. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and actually wrap this up. This is a long video, okay? Start off here. Next time, balancing mind and body pleasures. Yeah, we'll start here on the next video. So, thanks for watching, and y'all have a good rest of your day.